If I go into Wells Fargo and I hand a pro forma to them and they're like, hey, this is really messed up, you're going to have to spend a lot of time fixing this before we have an opportunity to give you lending. The first question I'm going to ask them is, great, how are you going to help me get there? Because here's the deal. They're my employee. They work for me, not the other way around. If I were to take all my money out of that bank, trust me, that's a significant loss to them. If 1,000 people were to do the same thing, now we're looking at a real problem. So welcome, veteran entrepreneurs. This is your host, Coach Bunn. This is episode 7 of the Warrior Rising podcast, Office Hours. Office Hours is an opportunity for us to address common questions that we find with veteran entrepreneurs. The first 2 episodes, I talked about why become an entrepreneur in the first place and some of the ups and downs associated with it. And then, of course, last episode, I had an opportunity to discuss the top 5 qualities I found in high-performing founders or veteran entrepreneurs. Today, I want to talk about some of the top 3 questions that we frequently receive during our coaching calls. Remember, Warrior Rising is the premier veteran transition organization dedicated to helping veterans find purpose through entrepreneurship. We help veteran entrepreneurs through continued education in our online programs. Of course, we have continued coaching and mentorship calls. We have masterclass calls called Warrior University that we host in partnership with Grand Valley State University and their Veteran Accelerator program. And then, of course, we have our national business showers where select individuals that have participated in our programs have an opportunity to compete against other veteran entrepreneurs for grants totaling in upwards of $20,000. So we have a lot of fantastic programs. If you're interested in joining the Warrior Rising tribe, you can head over to warriorrising.org to participate in our programs. And of course, if you're just interested in donating to the organization and you love what we're doing, you can also head over to warriorrising.org, and there's plenty of mechanisms in place by which you can donate to the organization. And of course, if you're interested in partnering with Warrior Rising, you could always reach out to me directly at ben@warriorrising.org. So today I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about the top 3 questions that we receive most commonly from our veteran entrepreneurs. We have a lot of mechanisms in place by which we frequently receive questions from veteran entrepreneurs, but most commonly we have coaching calls that are held a minimum of once a month on Wednesdays, right? And on those calls, we have an opportunity to just do general Q&A, general questions and answers with veteran entrepreneurs, some of which are brand new in the process. Some have just started ideating or started thinking about starting their own business. Others are well along their way, have employees, operating agreements, all these kind of things that you find associated with small businesses or, of course, businesses that are designed to reach an economy of scale. But we have found that we get these 3 questions most often. So the top 3 questions, and I'm going to kind of go over these by order of precedence and talk a little bit about those questions, or do my best to answer them to the best of my ability in such a way that can better prepare you, to address these issues as you start your entrepreneurial journey. Question number 1, how do I get funding for my veteran business? How do I get funding for my veteran business? Listen, short origin story, okay? I spent the better part of 20 years, 2 decades, about 17 years in the Army before getting out in and around 2016, right? I had an idea to start a CrossFit gym. I know that's not super original, right? An SF guy getting out to start a CrossFit gym. Go figure, an SF guy wants to fill up a warehouse full of weights and shit and just kind of hang out in Lululemon joggers all day. But that's what I did. And I was passionate about CrossFit. I had been doing it since 2005. Once I found myself in the Special Forces qualification course and recognized that I was not as fit as some of my peers. And I knew that CrossFit was this kind of new thing. It was kind of niche. and kind of one of these edge case fitness programs that people were using, but experiencing significant returns in terms of their ability to develop a more elite level of fitness. So, of course, got super into it. Attended my first level 1 seminar in 2008 and have been coaching groups and individuals ever since then. So I've been in the CrossFit game for a long time. I'd be happy to answer all kinds of questions about CrossFit should anybody ever want to start an affiliate, although I would say that the amount of individuals that are looking to open up CrossFit affiliates has slowed down quite a bit in the last 3 to 5 years, but there's still 12,000 affiliates worldwide. I took the time to really take a deliberate approach to opening up a CrossFit gym. I had a business plan that I spent a lot of time working on. I worked through financials, I worked through the business model, and of course, also downloaded a template for business model creation through the SBA website, with, of course, hopes that I could potentially submit an application for SBA lending of some variety. I started planning to open this gym years before I actually got out of the military, but started actually fitfully or really diligently working towards those plans in the last 6 to 9 months before I got out of the Army. And during that time frame, one of the things that I started working very heavily or very diligently towards trying to obtain was funding. And I'm going to tell you, I was under the impression that if I had a good idea, it would be easy for me to just put that idea in front of somebody, whether it was on a PowerPoint presentation, a pro forma, whatever the case may be. Lots of different ways to essentially, bring your business plan to life in an external way in order to show it to some guy or gal at a lending institution of some variety. And I was certain that all I had to do was show my good plan, a couple drafts for t-shirts that I had that I thought would be a real chuckle. And then people would just be waiting in line to hand me money because I was a disabled veteran. I had a storied professional background through years of professional and selfless service in the military. I spoke more than one language. I had a college degree. I had managed both groups and individuals, both through side hustles in my intended profession, which was going to be health and wellness. And then, of course, in the military, managed millions of dollars worth of equipment and personnel. And let me tell you, everybody was in a gigantic rush to not give me shit. Nobody wanted to give me a single solitary dime. I must have walked into a dozen different financial institutions, participated in calls with different liaison officers from the SBA, right, or the Small Business Association, who essentially have the ability to give you government subsidized lending, or in some cases work through commercial lending entities to give you government underwritten or subsidized commercial lending. And nobody wanted to give me a single solitary dime, right? And I found myself in a position where I had a significant amount of savings that I had kind of bankrolled across, about 20 years of my professional service in the military. I'd spent a lot of time saving money, counting my pennies, knowing that at some point I would get out, knowing that I wanted to start a business. And I nearly bankrupted myself. On top of that, I also took out a couple $30,000 zero interest 18-month kind of credit cards and maxed those suckers out as well. So I found myself after transitioning from the military, I literally opened up my gym 72 hours after getting out of the military because I had spent a lot of time back and forth in my last duty station, which was then Fort Benning, Georgia, now referred to as Fort Moore, still the home of the infantry, still the home of the airborne. Well, I guess Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty is the home of the airborne. Anyways, I don't want to fucking split hairs here. But whatever the case may be, I spent a lot of time going back and forth between Columbus, Georgia, getting everything put in place. And no joke, 72 hours after I had received, my DD 214 Form 4, I was standing tall in my gym with about 50 people in it, doing the workout, the girl named Workout Cindy inside my gym. But the fact of the matter is I had no access to lending whatsoever. And here's the deal. If you have a brand new business, you have no baseline receivables, you have no employees, you just have a GFI, right? A great fucking idea. And it doesn't matter really how good this idea is, but the chances of you getting any lending of any variety whatsoever from any commercial entity, private investment, or friends, family, and fools is almost goddamn zero, right? And I hate to tell you that in such a way. I don't want this to dissuade you, but you need to understand that getting access to lending, getting access to capital, if you do not have it to start a business, just because you believe deep down in your heart of hearts that you've got a great idea for a business, is almost nil. It is extremely difficult to receive lending of any variety unless you have a proven concept or you are already cash flow positive. And I know what you're thinking. We're like, what the hell? How do people start businesses if they don't have access to their lending? I mean, for God's sakes, I'm broke. And that's the rub. It's a real chicken egg scenario, right? And the fact of the matter is in most cases, new entrepreneurs, veteran entrepreneurs, really have to beg, borrow, and steal and get really creative in order to find access to lending. We're going to have podcasts in the future where all we do is talk about lending and the different types of lending, and the different types of organization that provide lending or investments. But for now, I'm just going to give you kind of a cursory overview of the different types of lending that are kind of available, different kind of investments that are available out there for new businesses, and then kind of tell you what your best bet is if you're just starting out and you know to a certainty that you're not going to have access to traditional investments or commercial lending, right? So, number one, the easiest way to get capital is through private resources. Sometimes people call this angel investing. I like to call it friends, family, and fools. Friends, family, and fools, right? This is, the access to individuals that believe deeply in this thing that you want to do is absolutely invaluable. And if you have an opportunity to borrow anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. It could even be an extremely small sum, $20,000, whatever the case may be. I don't know what the number is, but if you have access to a network of individuals, and whether they be friends of yours, family members, or just individuals, acquaintances that know you personally, but just happen to have access to liquid capital and don't necessarily have any commitments out there in the world and are just willing to invest in you, that is the number one way that you are going to be able to get access to capital as a new entrepreneur, is through friends, family, and fools, right? And you can structure those deals in a way that is low barrier to entry. It does not have to be overly litigious. That being said, I would 100% make sure that you're doing your best to draw up contracts, whether it's revenue sharing, or you're going to give them a percentage of the business. However you want to schedule, however you want to kind of structure that deal between you and that individual or individuals that are gracious enough to provide you with the startup capital needed to start a business, is kind of up to you. Definitely get a lawyer involved, and definitely make sure that you're not only providing yourself indemnity, but also those individuals. The easiest way to screw up a good relationship is to go into business with somebody. I'll tell you that right now, and I can tell you that from personal experience. So kind of that number one way to find investment capital or lending when you're just starting out, you don't have essentially baseline receivables, and you're somewhat of an unproven concept, even though you're probably like, no, dude, this is a sure thing. The number one way is through private investment or private lending, right? If you have individuals in your life or through your network, right? And listen, if you feel uncomfortable asking for money, if you do feel uncomfortable asking for money, you really should take a long, hard look in the mirror and think and ask yourself if you actually want to be an entrepreneur. Because if you're having problems asking for money to start the business in the first place, trust me, my brothers and sisters in Christ, you were going to have to ask for money all the goddamn time throughout the entirety of your entrepreneurial pursuits. Asking for money, asking for things, asking for money in exchange for services is just a very normal part of being an entrepreneur. So you got to get comfortable with it. Second kind of way that you can get access to lending or capital is just commercial lending. This is typically speaking for individuals that are a little bit further down the path in terms of, their entrepreneurial journey. You might be a year or two into your business. Hopefully you're about 2 years in of being cash flow positive. 2 years in of having baseline receivables is a really excellent kind of benchmark for lending organizations to take a look at you and say, okay, you're doing okay. In the first 2 years, generally speaking, is one of the hardest parts, or one of the hardest time frames. It's kind of that hardest window. If you can make it through the first 2 years of owning your own business, chances are you're going to make it to 5 years. And if you can make it past 5 years, man, you've got it going on. You're probably going to make it to 10. And if you can make it to 10, honestly, you can just keep that business running for as long as you personally want to, right? So, having 2 years of delineated success in business through baseline receivables, meaning you're cash flow positive for a period of time, is an excellent time to kind of walk into a bank and start thinking about SBA or commercial lending of some variety. There's a lot of different ways to get access to commercial lending, but my preferred method is to have a good relationship with a commercial bank. And you can bank with federal credit unions, you could bank with Wells Fargo, you could bank with Bank of America. I mean, the lending institution by which you choose to bank with doesn't make a ton of a difference in my experience. However, that being said, there are some commercial lending institutions that tend to do more lending, more commercial lending through the SBA or privately or through their own mechanisms with veteran entrepreneurs than others. We'll kind of talk about what organizations those are. I say that and that I don't want to sit there and start talking about one organization's practices. One, because I don't want to misspeak, and two, I don't want to point anybody in the direction of any specific lending institution. At the end of the day, you have to pick a lending institution that you're comfortable with. When I first started banking, I picked Wells Fargo because you're never more than like 30 minutes from a Wells Fargo ATM. They had a branch very close to my gym, and I could walk in there at any given point in time, and I had a guy or a gal that I could speak to specifically about whatever my issue might have been, whether I wanted a lower interest rate on my credit card, I needed to, essentially get a money order, or I wanted to deposit cash because I have a weird business that still does cash transactions here and there. Or I wanted access to some commercial lending, whether it was a CDFI or a line of credit, or once I had an opportunity to buy out my business partner 2 years after I had started my business, had baseline receivables, was doing very well, I was able to walk in there, and then Wells Fargo put me in contact with an SBA lending liaison that worked out of North Carolina. With their help, I was able to work directly with the SBA, and I was able to qualify for an express SBA loan. I say the word express SBA loans are supposed to be closed inside of a 90-day window. I'll tell you this right now, that shit took longer than 90 days. And the majority of SBA lending processes take anywhere from 90 days and all the way out to 18 months in some cases, right? And just understand that just because you have access to commercial lending of some variety, it does not mean that that commercial lending does not come with some significant both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage meaning that if you ask for $150,000 and they just give it to you, you're just going to walk out the door $150,000 richer. The disadvantage is that you now are beholden to a payment plan of some variety that looks a lot like a mortgage, only on a smaller time frame and probably with a much higher interest rate. Those funds might be earmarked in such a way that they're not only distributed to you according to the specific needs by which you articulated to the commercial lending organization. Hey, like I want to use this to buy new equipment and to make improvements to my facility. That organization might wait until you come back with the receipt for the equipment or for those improvements before they give you those funds. So if you think that you're going to get like $150,000 and then set aside $5,000 for a nice trip to Tulum or Cancun or some crazy shit like this, listen, you're in for a surprise, okay? So Commercial lending, it's available and it comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, but just understand if you want to get access to commercial lending of any variety, chances are you need to have at least 2 years of delineated success inside your business. Once you do, it's pretty easy to walk in there and get some lending. That being said, if your books aren't tight, if you're not able to show specifically how you're spending your money, how you are cash flow positive, if it looks like there's commingling of personal, professional funds, any of these kind of things, any flies in the ointment, so to speak, it is going to become very difficult for any commercial lending organization or lending institution to give you money when you've got all kinds of weird bugs under the rug, so to speak. And trust me when I tell you, they will have an opportunity to comb through all your financials before they give you a single solitary fucking dollar. So make sure before you walk in there, all your stuff is straight, but also make sure you have a lending institution that's working for you. If I go into Wells Fargo and I hand a pro forma to them and they're like, hey, this is really messed up, you're going to have to spend a lot of time fixing this before we have an opportunity to give you lending. The first question I'm going to ask them is, great, how are you going to help me get there? Because here's the deal. They're my employee. They work for me, not the other way around. If I were to take all my money out of that bank, trust me, that's a significant loss to them. If 1,000 people were to do the same thing, now we're looking at a real problem. So don't get it twisted. The bank works for you, not the other way around. You're paying them, not vice versa. So just keep in mind, do your best to find a lending institution, a commercial a lender close to you, whether it's a federal credit union that's local to your area, Navy Federal, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan Private, whatever you have access to. Make sure you build a good relationship with that commercial lending partner and utilize that first and foremost once you have the ability to get access to commercial lending. Once again, we could talk about commercial lending for an entire podcast, and we're gonna in the future. But for the sake of time, I just wanted to give you those broad options. So first and foremost, friends, family, fools. And then coming up right next after that, of course, is commercial lending. And then kind of the one for the big dogs out there, for the people that got businesses that can reach an economy of scale. We're talking about capital investment, right? Or venture capital. We can talk, I'm not going to deep dive too into venture capital and what it means to get access to venture capital or who, generally speaking, gets access to venture capital. But I do want to touch on it briefly so that people have a better way of understanding this. First and foremost, if you have a lifestyle business, chances are you will not have access to venture capital unless it's coming from somebody that you know personally. But traditional venture capital investment firms, generally speaking, do not have interest in lifestyle businesses. And the reason being is a lifestyle business does not have an economy of scale to provide a significant return on investment inside of a 3 to 5 to 7 year period for venture capital. Venture capital works on the premise that they have essentially partners that provide them with a significant amount of capital that they can use to invest in businesses. They'll get a percentage of the businesses that they invest in with the hopes that those businesses will do so well in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years that it will provide a significant return on those investment dollars. So with that in mind, venture capitalists, right, that are going to invest, not lend, invest in your business, are looking for businesses that not only have an economy of scale that makes a ton of sense, so individuals that can 5, 7, 10x their business model, but they also are looking for individuals that are growing at such a rapid rate that they can produce a return on that investment in a shorter period of time. If I'm getting ready to go up the street and open up the Pasta House USA or whatever, a restaurant, a CrossFit gym, a place selling muffins, or one of these joints where you can go like drink a shitload of wine and paint a picture of ballerinas or whatever. Look, I hate to break it to you, but that business does not have an economy of scale that's going to make you attractive to venture capital. We're talking about people that have software as a solution platforms, fintech platforms, organizations that have the potential to scale up in terms of their revenue and employees in short periods of time, right? So these are big, bad companies. These are people that have big, beautiful ideas. And trust me, the stakes are much, much higher. Also, when you get involved in venture capital, of course, structuring the framework for those deals and agreements also gets pretty damn complicated. Generally speaking, you have to submit what's called a 506 filing so that you can have SEC regulated access to funds from those lenders. You not only need to have a lawyer that specializes in those types of filings. Typically speaking, you have to work directly with a broker who also has the ability to help you out. And in most cases, when you have access to VC capital, there's entire teams of individuals that aren't just looking at you, they're looking at your business. They're doing bad actor checks, not only to see if you're some kind of villain, like you did a bunch of weird shit back in the day and got a bunch of sitting felonies, but also looking at your financial history to ensure that you're somebody that can be trusted with other people's money. They are going to go through your entire life with a fine-tooth comb. It is difficult to get venture capital. And trust me, once you have it, you have also brought in another person who's going to be making decisions inside your organization, because 9 times out of 10, they ask for a generous helping of equity in your organization. And with that equity usually comes decision-making ability. So hopefully that makes sense. If you believe that you're in a spot where you have access to venture capital, you should 100% reach out to us over at programs@warriorizing.org. We've got tons of great calls and classes that are coming up that specifically address individuals that need access or believe they have access or could have access to venture capital, commercial lending. And then, of course, we can give you some great pieces of advice, right, about how you might approach private investors, individuals in your circle, your family, your friends, to kind of figure out what's the best. Because if you know somebody believes in you, and in some cases, they're going to approach you. They're going to walk up to you and be like, dude, I believe in what you're doing. Like, is there a way for me to invest in this? So if you would like help navigating that, for sure, hit us up at programs@warriorizing.org. We would love to help you navigate that process, or at least give you as much advice as we're legally able to do so to help you navigate it. Because asking for money, like, listen, there's no bones about it. It's tough. It's painful. So that's probably the number one question that we get inside our ecosystem on our coaching calls is, how do I get access to money? The hard truth of the matter is the majority of individuals, 95, probably more than that, probably closer to like 97% of the individuals that are in attendance on our coaching calls and in our programs are not yet in a place to get access to funding of any variety outside of private investors inside their close circles. But that said, our programs can help get you there. So I don't want you to think there's no hope, but I can tell you right now, the homie, I was 36 years old. Like I said, I was managing millions of dollars worth of equipment, spoke different languages. I was a Green Beret. I had the respect of my community, my peers, my subordinates, my commanders. And 72 hours after I'd gotten out of the military, I opened my gym. Seemed seamless, but I'm here to tell you, I had bankrupted myself. I had taken on almost $50,000 in high interest debt, and I was sleeping on the couch in my mom's townhome, brother. So that ain't the case now. I'm living in a 2-story corner house now and doing my shopping at Whole Foods, brother. I got my shit wired tight. Don't worry about me. I drive a Subaru. But it was not always the case, and you got to be willing to make great personal sacrifices and take big risks if you want to start your own thing. But trust me, it's worth it, and we can help you. Number 2, big question we get all the time is, Coach Mon, how do I market myself? And we get the marketing question all the time. And marketing is one of these kind of like nebulous trades that can be absolutely aggravating. But when done correctly, of course, can help your business reach an economy of scale that's tremendously important. I tell people, number one way that you can market yourself is through social platforms. Social media is an absolutely fantastic way by which to market yourself. But before you just get out there and start trying to break your neck on social media and start shouting into your phone about products or services or whatever the case may be, I think it's really important that first and foremost, you identify exactly who you're marketing to. So essentially having an opportunity to identify your target consumer is going to be really important. I love essentially ideation around brand avatars, right? Or building an avatar of who your ideal consumer is. And, just saying like, hey, single white females around the age of 40 is not a brand avatar. That is not specific. You have not narrowed it down. But now if you start saying like, hey, single white females that are former military spouses or veterans that live in the Southeast between the ages of 27 and 42, that is a specified demographic. A long time ago, I had an opportunity to help launch and found a brand called Echelon, which essentially is a military-inspired or native military energy drink. It's got capsaicin in it. It's spicy. It's run by a great guy named Eric Bartel, who's doing really well. Sold in military retail and on Amazon. Real early on in that brand, I helped with both initial ideation around the creation of the brand itself, helped with their partnership with the Green Beret Foundation, and did a ton of field marketing on their behalf. At the same time that brand launched, I saw a brand called Alani Nu, and they had an influencer by the name of Addison Ray, who was helping promote a new flavor called Cherry Slush. And I must have visited, and I actually did the math, I visited roughly 115 stores across a 2.5 month period. The majority of those stores were military adjacent or located close to military installations, as we thought that would be where the greatest affinity for our product would probably lie, even though it was a national launch. So we had 3,800 locations inside GNC. And I always would keep an eye on what the consumer looked like for Echelon, but I, of course, was always looking at some of these adjacent products or actors. And I swear to God, hand to God, I swear, 9 times out of 10, when I saw somebody walking into GNC and purchasing Alani Nu, there was a couple things going on. It was always a young white woman. They were always wearing a pair of scrubs, and they always bought more than one. They would usually buy anywhere between 3 to 5. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, oh my God, if it was me and I was them, I would get vending machines immediately and I would stick them in every goddamn hospital in America. Now, were those people working in hospitals? They could have been a dental hygienist. They could have been a radiologist. They could have been working at a veterinary clinic. I don't know. I just know it was always some white lady in a pair of scrubs, and she was always buying several at one time. So it told me a couple different things. My demographic is probably somebody that works in the medical field. It's probably a single white female. And the average basket price is probably around $20, meaning I can ask them for $20, right? So if you have the ability to specifically address the demographic, whomever they may be, this is a powerful thing. So first and foremost, figure out who you're marketing to. Where do they shop? Where do they go? What do they do? What are they into? How much are they willing to spend? You must answer all these questions to effectively market, right? And then once you have an idea about what all these things are, now you can kind of go out into the wild and do some damage. I will tell you, social media is an absolutely invaluable platform. I had an opportunity to talk to an individual who runs a venture capital fund that specializes in veteran-owned businesses. And they cannot stand social media, right? This gentleman's older, did not grow up around social media. Neither did I. By the time I was out of high school, when I had gotten out of high school, AOL chat was just becoming popular, to give you like an idea of how goddamn old I am, right? Like I didn't get access to the internet until I was like in like 8th or 9th grade. That's when it like started becoming fast enough, or at least explicit enough that I could like Google answers. Google wasn't a thing, by the way. I think it was like Lycos or something like that. But I could like type something into a search engine and with some degree of accuracy get a decent answer. But for the most part, I still had to go to a library when I was in high school, just to give you an idea of how old I am. Honestly, it's depressing. But anyways, I say all that to say that I understood what this gentleman was talking about, right? Saying like, hey, people just seem to get lost in social media, and I think it's a waste of effort. Well, listen, anybody that thinks that social media is a waste of effort in terms of being able to make a significant impact probably hasn't spent any time talking to anybody with Lou Gehrig's disease. Anybody remember the ALS challenge, right? They were able to fund, or essentially fund, the next 2 generations of medical research for ALS as a result of the Ice Bucket Challenge that happened around 2012, 2013, right? And this is just an example of virality on social media platforms. All this to say, you have a blank billboard, and the blank billboard that you have is your social media account. And I don't care if you have 200, 2,000, or 200,000 followers. If you own your own business that sells something, whether it be a physical item or a service, and you are not utilizing social media, you are a goddamn fool, because it is a blank billboard. Listen, directly outside my house, or close to my house at least, there is a billboard. It belongs to a local zoo called Lowry Park Zoo. Do I have interest in the zoo? Am I a zoologist? Do I regularly attend Lowry Park Zoo? The answer to all those questions definitively is no. But that being said, I can tell you that during the month of October, they had Halloween themed tours that included vampires at Lowry Park Zoo. And I know that because there was a vampire with big ass light up eyes. I can tell you right now that they have some really cool stuff with sea turtles and potentially stingrays as well. So aquatic creatures. And the reason I know that is because all these things were displayed on a billboard that, although I had no interest in, I drove by several times a day for a period of months. And now I know exactly what's going on at Lowry Park Zoo, whether I like it or not. That is what your social media page is. People are there whether they like it or not. They're going to pick up their phone. They're going to scroll on Instagram. And if they follow you, you have free billboard space. And they might not know about that product the first time they see it or the second time, but I'm here to tell you, after they see it the third, fourth, and fifth time, they will know exactly what you've got going on. And listen, you do not have to convert everybody on your social media platform. But listen, if you have 200 followers, and you're able to convert 10% of those followers to purchase this thing that you have, now you're in business. Hell, if you're a personal trainer and you're just able to sell $1,000 personal training package to 10% of your 200 followers, my brother in Christ, you're making thousands of dollars. You're in business. As a matter of fact, if you only have machinations to make about $60,000 a year, you just did 30% of your annual business by selling to 10% of the 200 people that exist on your social media platform. Now, I could talk about how to market on social media all day. I could teach a goddamn course on it, okay? But the long story short is, treat your social media like it is business, because it is. It is. Let me ask you a question. When's the last time that you had a dental appointment? Did you schedule it on your calendar? Chances are you did. Now, let me tell you something about dentist appointments. They are objectively shitty. Nobody likes going there and having some old guy root around in your mouth for 30 minutes and then at the end of it, charge you a bunch of money. So here is this thing. It's objectively miserable. It costs you money, but you still scheduled it on your calendar to ensure that you did not forget. I want to make sure I don't forget to go spend an hour being miserable and then shelling out probably anywhere between $200 to $600, depending on what your dental hygiene looks like. So if you're willing to schedule and book time and hold yourself accountable to go do miserable shit that costs money, why on God's green earth would you not schedule regular time by which to schedule and create content on social media so your business could be more successful? It is bananas. And I have given this advice to multiple entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you what, I've seen their calendars and they're filled with bullshit, all right? Schedule an hour a day to create content and post it. We'll have a separate episode where we talk all about social media and both the good, bad, and the ugly in terms of how you market yourself. But at the end of the day, you must identify who your consumer is and you must use social media. Because it is free and it is everywhere. And I mean, listen, the last 9 out of 10 products that I now use and love, I found out about them through Instagram. And if I didn't find out about them through Instagram, I found out more ways to spend money, more ways to support, and more ways to get educated about that thing that I already purchased through Instagram or other social media platforms. There's a lot of arguments to be made about whether or not you should be focusing on TikTok versus LinkedIn versus Facebook versus Instagram. If you're looking to find a relatively fit 42-year-old man who's happy with his life, you probably need to go on Instagram. If you're looking for the same age demographic, but he's like recently divorced and having a bad time, probably needs to be on Facebook. He's more than likely posting shit about wolves or something about the Crusades or some other jarring shit. If you got a homie that's posting like that, you need to go check on him. If you're looking to just promote to broke kids, of course, you need to go to TikTok. And then if you want to talk to somebody who's thrilled about the new position that they just took on, just take your ass onto LinkedIn. Remember, long form does really well there. Once again, I could go on and on and on about marketing and social media, but I think the big takeaways here is when it comes to marketing, make sure you zero in on your target demographic, who it is that you're selling to, and use social media, guys. It's absolutely free. You're going to go out there, you're going to pay these PR agencies and all these other yahoos that are going to take your money to give you no definitive answers on any goddamn thing on the planet. But at the end of the day, if you take matters into your own hands, while you have the bandwidth to do so, you'll crush it. Once again, we'll talk all about marketing, all about social media on future podcasts, but that's just like my general take on it. Pretty good. I got pretty passionate there. There's probably going to be a lot of great sound bites from that. Anyways, moving along. Last thing I want to talk about today, and we don't get this one a ton, but we have gotten it just enough that I like to talk about it. And it was something that plagued me when I first started my own business is, do you need a business partner? Short answer, yes. Yes. Don't do this alone. Don't try and do this alone. Listen, owning your own business is like raising kids, man. You can do it by yourself, but holy shit, the outcomes are so much better when you have a partner. And sorry if that triggered anybody, but like the statistics are out there. If you got two people raising a family or running a business, chances are things go really well, both for the business or for that kid. But this is what I'm going to tell you as it pertains to choosing a business partner. I know a lot of people that have done the diligence to find somebody that complements them in such a way that makes that partnership or that business stronger. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't go into this with rose-colored glasses thinking that you and your homie are going to stay the best of friends. Because as soon as money and hard decisions and managing employees and periods of miserable shit that happen for entrepreneurs start happening, right? You are going to wish that you had structure in place. And the structure is simple. It's an operating agreement. Get an operating agreement before you take any money, before you open the doors, or before you start selling candy canes or whatever weird shit it is that you're doing as an entrepreneur. Get that operating agreement, put everything in black and white, and put structure around what that relationship is going to look like professionally. So when the hard decisions do come, you've got a framework that's already laid out that tells you exactly how to do it because you took the time beforehand in the sober light of day to say, hey, if things get tough, this is the mechanism and framework that I would like in order to help us navigate these decisions, right? And there's a lot to be said for what percentage you should end up giving somebody. I remember I had ideated and dreamed of starting a CrossFit gym really for like the better part of a decade. If you speak to anybody that knew me, they were all like, he was always talking that shit. He was going to open a CrossFit gym. And then he went off and did it. And it was no surprise to them. So, and I say that to say I had been dreaming of this for years. And I brought in a business partner who essentially was like, it seems like what you're doing is cool. It was a guy that I had gone to college with, great guy, super smart, had fantastic experience in the Bay Area, like startup industries. When I look on it in hindsight, I don't know what he was doing trying to start a business with my stupid ass. But it was a fantastic 2 years for the period of time that we had an opportunity to work together. And to this day, he's a great friend of mine, and I can't thank him enough for everything that he provided for me, both personally and professionally. But at the time, I didn't want to give this guy 50% of my business. I was like, you know what, dude? I came up with this idea. I've been doing CrossFit for more than a decade. This is my thing, my dream. And you want 50% of it? Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? I was like, no way, bro. Absolutely not. And I felt emotional about it because I was foolish. But at the end of the day, he brought so much to the table. And there is no way that I would have been as successful had I not had his professional advice, his acumen that he brought to the table that wasn't very clear to me at that time. And the fact of the matter is when you're getting ready to start a business, just because you have a good idea doesn't mean that you deserve 50%. Does not mean that you deserve 50% just because you got a good fucking idea, because everybody's got good ideas. It's execution that's hard, right? And this person's going to put in sweat equity with your ass. And when I say blood, sweat, and tears, brother, restaurants and gyms require blood, sweat, and tears. I'm sure other businesses do too. You shouldn't be bleeding a lot in order to support a business. Just putting that out there. If you're making trips to the emergency room and shit, you probably need to pick a different industry, whatever. Anyways, but the fact of the matter is, if you have somebody that's willing to legally and financially commit themselves to helping you start this beautiful thing, even if it wasn't their idea, you better break them off 50% of that business and hook them up. Because whether you know it or not, they're getting ready to give 50% and then some and sweat equity along the way. I ended up buying my business partner out 2 years later. I utilized an SBA loan, commercial lending, in order to do so. And because we had an operating agreement, because we had a friendly buyout, because we were able to have professional discussions with one another, it made all the difference in the world. But I'm here to tell you the most important decision you can make in owning a business or in marriage is picking the right partner. It's picking the right partner. If you pick the right partner, I'm here to tell you it makes absolutely everything easier. And even though I do run the gym on my own now legally, I do have stakeholders. And ever since I lost my business partner, I have made a deliberate effort to find individuals that I know that I can compensate above and beyond what is, generally speaking, used to compensate individuals in those positions in health and wellness, specifically CrossFit gyms. And I treat them like stakeholders. I give them percentages of sales. I ensure that they have access to percentage-based bonuses, and do everything I can to include them in all decisions inside the organization, to treat them exactly as if they were a legal partner. Because the fact of the matter is in my personal opinion, every business owner needs a good partner. Every business owner needs a good partner. And I would guess that behind every Bill Gates is a Melinda Gates, right? Behind every Elon Musk. I don't know what Elon Musk has in terms of a business partner or counsel. As far as I know, he's got like 22 different like ladies that he's got kids with. Hopefully they're giving him some advice. I'd be interested to know what that advice is. Or, I'm sure Jeff Bezos. Anyways, my point being, all these individuals that do well in entrepreneurial pursuits, even though the big name it's Jeff, it's Elon, it's Bill, my sense is all of them have individuals that are working with them in partnership that really make that happen. And I think it's overlooked. I think people don't consider it enough, but definitely look for a good business partner, compensate them the right way. And for God's sakes, make sure you delineate your partnership legally by way of an operating agreement. And it makes all the conversations that may or may not happen later on down the road that could be tough, much, much, much easier. Anyhow, that's time today, veteran entrepreneurs. I really appreciate you tuning in. Once again, office hours is just an opportunity for essentially me to talk crazy shit about whatever is top of mind. So I really appreciate the fact that you're all tuning in. We appreciate your patronage. If you're interested in participating in our programs, don't forget, you can email us at programs@warriorizing.org. We have a regular cadence of both coaching, mentorship, and masterclass calls every single week. And your participation could help make you the next great American business owner. I certainly hope to see you there. And I hope you have an opportunity to tune in for our next podcast. We'll talk soon. Ciao.